he is unhappy about everything that is happening. This is how the President of the United States responded to a question about the continued Russian airstrikes on civilian infrastructure and peaceful residents of Ukraine. He did not criticize Russia and said that he would speak with Putin by phone in the coming days and that some European leaders would visit him this week to discuss the situation. The White House has not yet responded to journalists' questions about exactly who is expected. There were no international negotiations scheduled in Donald Trump's public agenda for Monday. The European Union is preparing to impose new sanctions against Russia. The 19th package is expected to be presented at the end of the week, according to Politico. Brussels may synchronize these steps with Washington, where the EU has already sent its delegation to maintain a unified sanctions front. This was stated by the European Commission. The President of the United States is signaling readiness to also increase pressure on Russia as the US and the European Union prepare to force an end to Putin's war, while he sets yet another negative record in the use of weapons against Ukraine. All the details are in the report by Radio Liberty correspondent Zoryana Stepanenko, prepared especially for TSN.
After a difficult discussion about sanctions at the hybrid summit of the coalition of willing countries, Brussels and Washington continue their talks on this issue at other levels, just as they had agreed. The EU's special envoy for sanctions, former ambassador to the US David O'Sullivan, has traveled to the American capital. The official will hold a series of meetings in Washington today and tomorrow. The EU expects the United States to increase pressure on Russia. The leader of one of the continent's leading countries, Chancellor Merkel, said that it is hardly possible to force Russia onto the path of diplomacy by military means and suggested focusing on economic measures instead. But when European leaders brought this up to President Trump last week, he pointed back at them, reminding them of the EU's purchases of Russian oil and, in the US president's view, the weak pressure on China. So far, the EU's sanctions against Beijing have been rather modest. The head of the European Commission, who had pointed out to the US president at the time the significant reduction in the EU's consumption of Russian oil in recent years, later continued this conversation by phone with the American vice president. Now, efforts are being made to synchronize sanctions policy at the delegation level.
We have a few very interesting discussions. You know, when they lose 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week for no reason, this needs to be resolved.
When do you precisely plan to speak with President Vladimir Putin next, in the near future?
Very soon, within the next few days. Listen, we'll sort this out. We will resolve the situation with Russia and Ukraine. I'm convinced of that.
Donald Trump, who expects concessions from both Russia and Ukraine to end the war, has postponed his own deadlines for the Kremlin several times. The latest one passed on September 1st. The delay with sanctions in Washington was explained by a reluctance to harm the negotiation process. But when the US president was asked yesterday, after yet another massive shelling of Ukraine that damaged the Cabinet of Ministers building, about his readiness to increase pressure on Russia, Trump replied that he was ready, without going into details. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the same thing, also emphasizing similar expectations from European partners. The 19th package of EU sanctions is currently in preparation. Consultations with member states are ongoing. This is the traditional alignment of positions. Who is ready to support what? This takes place before the official presentation of the package by the European Commission. Sources from EU diplomatic circles, speaking to Radio Liberty on condition of anonymity, said that a blow is being prepared against Russia's energy and financial sectors. There will be an attempt to introduce secondary restrictions, as well as an effort to limit the number of Russian diplomats here and to stop issuing tourist visas to Russians. Regarding the latter, our interlocutors doubt whether it will succeed. From Brussels, Zoryana Stepanenko, Marek Hajduk, Radio Liberty, especially for TSN 1+1.